And get in Athens, police used tear gas in clashes with protesters as an anti-austerity rally outside the Greek parliament spirals out of control. As the one-year anniversary of the MH17 plane crash in eastern Ukraine approaches, Russia says the ongoing investigation is under pressure from the media and politicians. And Los Angeles Police Department is forced to release video footage of officers killing an unarmed man after keeping it secret from the public for more than 2 years. Hello there, you're watching RT International. You're with me, Katie Pilbeam. It's just gone 5 p.m. here in the Russian capital. Welcome to the programme. After hours of debate, the Greek parliament agreed to austerity reforms demanded by the European creditors to secure a financial bailout. But Prime Minister Alexei Tsipras, who actually brokered the deal, showed little enthusiasm for the result.
Από τις συνέπειες οικονομικών μέτρων, στην πλειοψηφία των οποίων δεν πιστεύουμε, και είναι αλήθεια αυτό, αλλά είμαστε αναγκασμένοι να εφαρμόσουμε, διότι αυτό είναι σήμερα το πλαίσιο το ευρωπαϊκό.
The Prime Minister is not the only one unhappy with the reforms. Some MPs were furious with the deal.
Εδώ σήμερα για να pite ότι αποδέχεστε απολύτως το ξεπούλημα της Ελλάδος, έχοντας ήδη καταστρέψει ολόκληρη την αγορά.
That was a member of the far-right Golden Dawn Party, which has been accused of following neo-Nazi ideology. They reject any deal with Europe, and their motto is "Greece belongs to Greeks." In the past, party members have been arrested over links to criminal gangs, and this is their flag. And posters of the German finance minister sporting a Hitler moustache have been popping up in Athens too. Director of Policy Research in Macroeconomics, Anne Pettifor, thinks the harsh bailout deal will spark hatred across Europe.
I'm really worried that this deal is going to stoke hatred across Europe. What happens when you have crises like these is that people begin to take an individual and to then draw generalizations about a whole nation from that individual, and that is the beginning of racism, and it's extremely disturbing. But what I think is really just as disturbing is not only is this going to cause social and political unrest in Greece, but also across Europe. It's going to be the end of democracy across Europe, the thing upon which Europe is built and is so proud of and distinguishes itself.
Well, while the MPs were debating the bailout deal outside the parliament, the streets were being lit up with firebombs and the peace shattered by stun grenades as well, as anti-austerity protesters, they clashed with police. The Greek media published headlines asking if the PM can now be branded a traitor and pointed out the loss of his party's trust. Nevertheless, a recent poll shows that most Greeks want to see Alexei Tsipras as Prime Minister, even if there is a reshuffle in government. We spoke to a local professor who thinks discontent among the ruling party's supporters will grow.
The Greek government has capitulated to the demands of our European Union creditors. In a certain way, the Greek government is turning against the very segments of the population that supported it, brought it to power, and also massively voted in favor of the no vote in the referendum. So this is the main aspect of yesterday, the rupture of Syriza with its own electorate, with those segments of society that had placed their hope upon Syriza.
We'll give you the latest updates on the situation in Greece throughout the day. It's been 1 year since Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 crashed in eastern Ukraine, killing all 298 people on board. Friday is the first anniversary of the tragedy, and so far there's no conclusive proof about who's responsible for downing the passenger jets. A year on, some of the MH17 plane debris can still be found at the site of the crash. There's also memorials to the victims, apparently set up by locals. Those who witnessed the tragedy on July the 17th last year describe scenes of horror and panic.
Летели два самолета, один из облаков вылетел.
Военные вылетели?
Да он не понимает. Потом одним выстрелом сбили второй. И все.
Я подумал, сначала парашютист летит. Кажется, парашютист на парашюте. Потом думаю, не то что-то. Оглядываюсь. А туда две точки за тучки. Две точки. Я жене кричу. Бомба, скорее всего. А гул стоит такой бешеный. Два хлопка. А Наташа, бомбы. Мы текать в хату.
И слышу грохот. Я только на ступеньке встала, грохот. А муж после меня выскочил. И она упала, получается. Я только выбежала. Она упала. И муж, он думал, что это... Он чуть не побелел. Он думал, что это я.
The Dutch-led international investigators are expected to release their final report in about 3 months from now. CNN, citing unnamed sources, claimed the findings will blame anti-government forces in East Ukraine for shooting down the passenger jets.
CNN has learned investigators of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 say evidence points to pro-Russian rebels as the culprit for bringing down the passenger plane. A draft report by the lead crash investigators, the Dutch Safety Board, also indicates Malaysia Airlines did not do enough to keep the plane out of harm's way.
The Dutch Safety Board said it was leading a technical inquiry aimed at establishing the circumstances of the crash. It reiterated it had nothing to do with a criminal investigation into who was behind the downing. But so far, claims that anti-government militias shot down the plane with a Russian-made surface-to-air missile are the most dominant. And long before the investigation even started, many were quick to point the finger of blame at Moscow, as RT's Guy Jagan reports.
17 headlines came out almost immediately saying the blood is on the Russian president's hands. The Sun was absolutely certain it was Putin's missile. Other headlines demanded answers from Russia. On airwaves, too, Western politicians all but blamed Moscow.
Russia has their fingerprints all over it either way.
The equipment had to have come from Russia.
And so public opinion was formed.
Public sentiment is that Russia's probably involved, and if involved, they're probably going to cover it up. That's where the public sentiment is in the CNN poll.
The American people got it right in terms of who's to blame here, folks. 51% say Russia's indirectly involved.
Clearly, the stakes are high. Whoever shoulders the blame for this atrocity is going to be the target of global anger. And right now, it looks like it's Russia's fault because it's Russia's fault.
Along with Russia, rebels in eastern Ukraine became the primary suspect in the media. So much so that when major Western news outlets posted this photo, many in social media immediately assumed that the rebel fighter was holding the toy as a trophy, hence these tweets. But few of them, it seems, saw what actually happened behind that photo. Long before any investigation even began, many had already assigned the blame for what happened in the Ukrainian airspace on July 17th of 2014. In Washington, I'm Ganesh Chekyan, RT.
Well, the preliminary report by the Dutch investigators established that the plane was hit from outside. That as the release of their final findings come mid-October. This Thursday, Russian Air Transport Agency commented on the course of the investigation, saying those behind the probe have been under pressure from international media and officials, and that Russia was the only country which had officially declassified and released its records from the time of the crash. The agency also said Moscow's investigators have been largely excluded by the probe. They added if the missile had been fired from the militia-controlled territories, the Russian radars would have tracked it. A court order has forced Los Angeles Police Department to release videos showing the killing of an unarmed man. The shooting took place back in June 2013 and the footage has been kept secret from the public for more than 2 years. Ricardo Diaz Zeferino was fatally shot by officers in the city of Gardena. Well, the videos were reported by a police dashcam. We won't show you the exact moment of the fatal shooting, but these are the moments immediately before it. Now, police ordered 3 men to raise their hands and they complied. Zeferino then lowers and raises his hands several times and then removes his cap. This was when the police opened fire, killing him with 8 bullets. The officers said they thought he was reaching for a weapon. Well, lawyers for the Zeferino family say the case should become an example of what police should not do.
The Gardena Police Department fought tooth and nail to hide this video from you, the public, and the media.
This is a poster child case as to why police departments cannot control their own officers and why there's no discipline and no supervision.
The shooting was ruled as justified by the district attorney and the officers were not charged. The LAPD said it opposed the release of the videos because it would create a rush to judgment. Well, Carl Dix from the Coalition to Stop Police Brutality believes the department simply knew the video would do a lot of damage.
It is a positive development that the video saw the light of day, but let's be clear. The authorities had this video at the time of the case. They knew it would be damaging for them. It would raise that they had brutally murdered someone. So they suppressed it. So it is on one level too late for this particular case, but it makes clearer that police have been unleashed to brutalize and even murder people. It has to be stopped.
Another deadly police shooting took place in Los Angeles in March this year. Officers responding to a suspected robbery tried to take a homeless man into custody, but he resisted. He was first hit with a taser and then shot after allegedly reaching for the officer's gun. Police were wearing body cameras that day, but the videos have not been released. They were only seen privately by one journalist, who says they paint a different picture from that being presented by the police. Well, Carl Dix says the practice of not using these videos is widespread all across the states.
The LAPD used the video that was available initially to justify what they did, and this journalist had to dig to find information that was actually available to the LAPD. It was just information that they didn't want to release. They chose not to use it. The authorities in LA backed them up in choosing not to use it. And that's the way the authorities all across the country, at both the local level, the state level, and the federal level.
We'll be back with more international news after a very short